Graders, good morning, happy afternoon, whatever time it is when you're watching this. This is Mrs. Oliver bringing you today's lesson on slope. Okay, we will learn how to find slope. We will learn how to identify it from a line on a graph already, or even if we're just given the slope and a point on it, how to make the line. Okay, we have finished how to find the change of constant rates of change from tables and graphs. And this is all going to tie into from when we have to do equations and graphing them. Okay, so we're putting this, we're in Unit 4, but it's Chapter 1 of Volume 1 textbook. Gluing in today's notes, it is a 2-page set, so you want to make sure you can see the back side. So what is slope that we know of? Well, we know slope is the rate of change. Those wonderful words we have been seeing all the time. Slope is the rate of change between any 2 points on a line. Okay, it can be considered as finding the change in y over the change in x, your vertical change, your horizontal change, or somehow we like to call it our rise over our run. Okay, slope tells us how quickly a line is rising or falling. It rises if it's a positive slope and it falls if it's a negative. This is also considered the steepness of a line. The smaller the slope, the less the steepness of the line. Okay, so when we're working on it today, we're going to look at how do we find our change in y. And the way they found their line was going up 1, 2, and we looked at our increments, not just the squares. Okay, so we know our vertical change was 2, and then how did we run over is only by 1 because we went from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. That is our horizontal change, or as we call it, a run. So 2 over 1, which reduces down to 2. You always want to reduce your slope as well into lowest forms. Okay, so let's look at the first one. They gave us some pretty lines. So when I run, I'm running up 2. But then what is each of these blocks actually equal to? You can always go from 0 to the first line, and that tells you. So it's really like a 2 times 4, which then is 8. And then what about my next one? I run, and it's only 1. And our blocks then is only a difference of 1. So 1 times 1 is 1. So we would say our slope is 8. Okay, so that means for each of us, it is going up 8 and over by 1, up 8 and over by 1, up 8 and over by 1. So let's look at the next one. They didn't give us any plot points, so we actually kind of got to come in here and put our own points. And what I look for is the pretty integer points, which actually goes through each one here. Okay, so let's look and see, how do we rise? Well, I go up 1 every time. Every single one of these is going up by 1. Okay, but what does that 1 represent? Well, it represents a 2. 1 times 2, which is 2. Now let's look at our runs. I only run by 1, but what is the units for that? Well, from 0 to 8, we have 8. So we have 1 times 8, which is 8. So 2 over 8 actually divide both by 2 because they're even, and you get 1/4. And what we want to look at really here is how each one has their own little staircase going on. But this one has steeper staircases. You have to take bigger steps. Whereas this one, you have a lot more little ones because its steepness is not as high because it's only a fraction. All right, now let's go where we have to look and find our slopes again. Now you can use any two pairs that we want to use. When I'm going through though, I want to put my pretty points here because like if I went right here, that's a decimal. Okay, so we want some pretty points. All right, so let's look. How do we go up? 1, 2, 3, 4. I went up 4. How did I go over? By 1. So the slope of our line, and it can't be reduced. 4 is just 4. And it does the same thing each time. You go up 4, over 1. Up 4, and over 1. I can predict that there's probably a point right there. All right, now here we have another one that we have actually going through diagonally through each square. So we have a bunch that we could choose from. You notice how this line is pointed differently than all of our other ones? Am I actually going to do any rising is what we need to look at. To get to my other point, I have to go downward, then run to the right. We always run right. Okay, so I go down 1, over 1, down 1, over 1. When we go down, down is negative. Okay, so if you need to, put a note. Negative. Okay, so I have a negative 1 over 1. So our slope is just negative 1. Look at our next one. Now this one's a positive slope because it's going up to the right. It is rising. And we can pick any two and then just reduce. But we're just going to look for them. All right, so how do I get up? 1, 2. I went up 2. I go up 2. I go up 2. How do I run though? I go to the right because we always go right each time by 1. So we could say our slope equals 2. That's all we're doing. Now we have a couple of times. Am I running at all? Or am I going up at all? Each of these? No, it's a horizontal line. There's no going up. How do I run though? I run by 1. 0 divided by 1 is 0. All right. Let's do our pretty ones. It doesn't matter which ones again, remember? You're just looking for some. You only need 2 ordered pairs to figure it out. All right, remember, we're going down. So I went down by 2. I'm running by 1. Down 2, right 1. Down 2, right 1. So that gives us a negative 2 slope. Okay. Now here, I'm rising by 1 every time. But guess what? Do I run at all? There's no running. If you put this in the calculator as it is, you would get an error. So this is what we call undefined. The undefined slope. So you have your 0 slope, you have an undefined slope if it's vertical. Alrighty. Make sure you have those, flip it over. And now we're going to practice if we were given the slope and a ordered pair, which is a point on the line. Right? The one thing we need to make sure we remember, 2 on top, remember, it is always rise or your fall over your run. And we always run to the right. An ordered pair is always given as our x. and our y. And x tells us which way left or right, and y tells us which way up or down. A quick review on that one. Okay, so looking at our first one, we want to go over to 1, but down to 2. That's our first point. Okay, my slope is 2/3. Okay, so that means with 2/3, I'm going up 2 and I'm going to run 3. Okay, because we want to rise 2 because it's a positive number, and then we always go to the right. So from that same point, I go 1, 2, and we're going to run 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I don't have enough space to keep going, so we want to just make our line as straight as possible. And this would be my other spot, my ordered pair. So you need to use a straight edge, run it through. And there's our line. Okay. All right, let's do another one. I'm going to make my point -2, -5. So I go over to -2, I drop down to -5, and there's my point. Now I go back and look at my thing. My slope is 2. But remember, 2 is a whole number. 2 over 1. So that means I'm going to go up 2, and then I'm going to run to the right 1. So from my -5, I go up to -3 and over 1. So from -3, we go up 2 and over 1. We go up 2 and over 1. And remember, you don't count until you've actually moved. That's a common error. I'll get kids go 1 and then 2. And they're like, oh, we go right here. I'm like, no, you gotta go up 1 more. It's a common error. It's okay. All right. And so then we make our line the best that we can. Probably should have used the line. All right. There we go. Now, if you feel like you're getting the hang of this, you can pause the video, and then at the end, I'll make sure I have the whole display put up before we do. Oops, I went up and not down. All right. We want 3 and -2. There's my point. Now, we have to be careful. There's a negative with my 1/3. The -1/3 means we go down 1 and run right 3. So starting from here, I go down 1 and over 3. Okay. So now we want to make our line. Okay. Best that you can. That's what your line should look like. Okay. And if I wanted to check it, I'm like, oh, did I do that right? Find more pretty points and see, did I really go down 1 and over? Ooh. And it's really hard when you make your lines like, let me just try that again. All right, so we went down 1 and over 3. There we go. That looks more like it. We should go through -1 and then -3. That's looking better. And that's the thing. If you know what your slope's supposed to be like, you can literally make your points the rest of the way. So you know you're going down 1, over 3, down 1, over 3, down 1, over 3, down 1, over 3. And there's your graph. All right. We're almost done, folks. Ordered pair. Now I have a negative again. So that means we're going to go down 2 and then run 3. So if we go down 2, here's my 1, 2, and then run 3. 1, 2, 3. If you're a person that you feel like you're going to need bunny hops, do bunny hops. That's not that big of a deal. Okay? Well, if I wanted to work backwards, I know I'm going to go up 2 and left 3. Here's my other ordered pair. So here we go. And somewhere over here would be my other line. Okay? Alright, so we need to put -2, -2 as our ordered pair. So go to -2, -2. There's our ordered pair. Now we are moving. This is a whole number, so we need to make sure we go down 3 and right 1. So from where we started, we go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 1. That's where my next order pair is. Okay? Let's make a 9. Use your straight edge. Go through the points the best that you can. All right. One more and then we'll talk homework. All right. 1, -1. So that means we're going to the right 1 and down 1. There's our first order pair. Now this is a negative slope again, so that means I'm going down 3 and right 4. So, and sometimes I use the bunny hops if that helps. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to run 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Eventually you should be able to just go through and just count it as you move along. 1, 3, 1, 2, 3. That should be another plot point there. And then doing the best that I can, I'm going to go from 1 square point. Oops, that was not where I wanted it. Oop. Let's just keep going. I need to do with my calendar. Alright, try it again. From this point, go through that one. And alright. It's pretty close to it. Okay. Alright, so let's make sure you have all of this seen the way that you should have it. Go full screen this way. So if you pause, this is how all of your graphs should be looking. Okay? All right. Homework. Let's do 1 through 6. Now, one of your problems has multiple parts on it. So technically, this is all 10 problems. All right, so we have a table that shows the number of pages that Adriano reads in X hours. We have to graph the data. Remember again, this is my X, this is my Y. Then we have to find the slope. So at 1 and 50, 2 and 100, 3 and 50, and 4 and 200. So this is what your graph should be looking like. Okay. So we have to find the slope. Well, how do we go up and how do we go over? Well, my change in Y over your change in X. So that means we have 50 over 1. So my slope equals 50. Okay, make sure you're going through, and if it's a fraction, make sure you reduce it. All right, have a great day.